The day Olivia's first love came back to the country, I burned our house to the ground. I took nothing with me, except for the fraternal twins she had given me. When she was critically ill and desperately needed a kidney, I didn't hesitate to give her one of mine. But she believed I had used despicable means to marry her, tearing her away from her first love. Now I've finally given up and faked my own death to disappear. Yet when she heard the news of my death, she completely fell apart. The fall festival is a time for family reunions, and it's also the children's birthday. The kids begged Olivia for ages before she finally relented and agreed to come home for once. She casually mentioned wanting a home-cooked meal, so despite a raging fever, I cooked an entire feast. By now the food was cold, and the children were stubbornly guarding their birthday cake, refusing to sleep. Olivia never showed up. My head was spinning, so I swallowed a handful of fever reducers and headed out the door. I knew where to find her whenever she was upset. She always wanted to talk things over with her friends. The patio of the villa was softly lit, and I could see Olivia drinking and laughing with a few of her girlfriends. Ethan Carter is coming back to the States. So what are you going to do about Lucas Hayes, the guy who married into your family, and those twins of yours? My hand froze in midair just as I was about to knock. Olivia's perfect features seemed distorted in the flickering light, her brow furrowed with worry. We'll divorce. You can take the kids. That way Ethan won't have to see them and get upset. Her reply was cold and final, but it was exactly what I expected. After all, if her grandfather hadn't forced her to marry me on his deathbed, Ethan would never have left the country. She protested our wedding by simply not showing up. A man marrying into a wealthy family, only to be left at the altar. I became the joke of Los Angeles overnight. We didn't see each other for a year after the wedding. Then, after one reckless night, she ended up pregnant with fraternal twins. The moment they were born, Olivia felt nothing but disgust, ordering the nurse to get them out of her sight, refusing to even glance at them. They were simply evidence of her betrayal of the man she truly loved. When she promised to come home for their birthday, I was naive enough to think her icy heart was finally starting to thaw. The silence was broken by another one of her friends. Honestly, your husband has been pretty good to you. Even after the Hayes family went bankrupt, he used his old connections to get you so many resources. He wasn't even fully recovered, but he was out drinking with clients until he got a bleeding ulcer, all to help you build your company into what it is today. Another friend immediately shot that down. Olivia would have been just as successful without him. If that pathetic man hadn't gotten it in his head to donate his kidney, her grandfather would never have forced her into this marriage, and she and Ethan wouldn't have lost all these years. He's just a freeloader who married in. Does he really think he's still the great scion of the Hayes family? Just get rid of him. My heart tightened. I heard Olivia's cool voice cut in. It's a drag talking about him. Let's just drink. One of the women giggled seductively. You know, Lucas Hayes is genuinely handsome. He used to be quite the catch. Since you're throwing him out anyway, why not let your girls have a taste? Yeah, just treat him like a boy toy for the night. Through the ensuing laughter, Olivia said nothing. She just tilted her head back and drained her glass of champagne. I often feel like my life has never gone according to plan. It's constantly veering off track, heading straight into one blizzard after another. Olivia and I met at a charity auction hosted by my family. Back then, I was the heir to the powerful Hayes family fortune, and she was just the owner of a small startup. She had tagged along with a friend just to get in. My paintings were among the items up for auction. The city's elite were bidding exorbitant amounts, not for the art, but for a chance to curry favor with the Hayes family. But in a quiet corner, one young woman was staring at my painting, completely captivated. The piece was titled Mother, and it was the work I was most proud of. As she gazed at it, a single tear rolled down her cheek. She must have sensed me watching her, because she took a step back, looking at me with a shy, almost fearful expression. "Mr. Hayes, your work is beautiful," she said softly, but I could never afford it. Her words felt like a gentle breeze, setting my heart racing. I found out later that her parents had died when she was young, and she was raised entirely by her grandfather. My painting had touched something deep inside her, so I gave it to her as a gift. marking the beginning of a 6-year, one-sided love affair. Olivia was always reserved and distant, but she never outright rejected me. It gave me hope that I could eventually win her over with sincerity. I introduced her to top-tier investors and contacts, watching with pride as her company grew. Then, overnight, the Hayes family empire crumbled, and I was the only one left. I was alive, but only in body. Later, against my Aunt Clara's desperate pleas, I gave my kidney to Olivia. The complications from the surgery nearly cost me my life, and I was forced to put down my paintbrushes for good. Mr. Miller knew his family was indebted to me, so on his deathbed he made Olivia promise to marry me. She couldn't bring herself to say no to a dying man, but her one condition was that I marry into her family. It was only after we were married that I learned her heart had always belonged to her first love. In her heart, the role of husband was already taken. That year on the night of the festival, Olivia came home for the first time, drunk and stumbling. I was just trying to help her to her room when she wrapped her arms around me, her body reeking of alcohol. She clung to me like a vine, her hands exploring my body, pulling me closer. "Kiss me," she whispered. In a moment of weakness, I made a terrible mistake. When I woke up, Olivia was clutching the sheets, her eyes filled with tears of rage. She slapped me hard across the face. "Isn't marrying me enough for you? You have to resort to something this vile. You're disgusting." I realized then that this had all been a mistake from the very start. I should have left a long time ago. I dragged myself back to the house, the gilded cage that had become our marriage. As I expected, the children were still awake. They swarmed me, clinging to my legs. "Daddy, is Mommy home too?" they asked, their faces lighting up. They ran to the door, their hopes high, only to walk back with their heads hung low. Leo's little face crumpled, and he started to cry. "Doesn't Mommy want us anymore?" His question felt like a fist closing around my heart, squeezing until I couldn't breathe. I knelt and pulled him into a hug. "Daddy wants you," I whispered. "Will you come with me?" I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth, that their mother had never wanted them, that we were just obstacles on her path to happiness. Lily, acting like a little grown-up, patted my shoulder comfortingly. "Don't be sad, Daddy," she said. "Wherever you go, we'll go with you." After I finally managed to get them to sleep, I locked myself in the bathroom. I turned on the shower and just stood there, letting the hot water cascade over me, hiding the sound of my own sobbing. The rush of water was the only thing that preserved my last shred of dignity. They had never known a moment of true happiness as my children. From the second she learned she was pregnant, Olivia had wanted nothing more than to get rid of them. She only relented when the doctor warned that an abortion might leave her unable to conceive again. She had to save herself for Ethan's children, after all. When the nurse tried to hand her the newborn twins, she recoiled in disgust, screaming to get them away from her. The sight of them made her sick. I raised them by myself, playing the part of both mother and father. She never acknowledged their existence to anyone. If they ever dared to call her Mommy, she would snap at them. She treated her own flesh and blood worse than strangers. Every time the kids asked with hopeful eyes when Mommy was coming home, I had to invent another lame excuse. It got to the point where they just said, "Daddy, you're a liar." Leaving was the only way to set us all free. Maybe Olivia suddenly remembered the promise she'd made to the children, because late that night, she came home. I was in the middle of packing when her icy voice startled me from behind. "What are you doing?" I turned around and met her gaze. Her eyes were hazy with alcohol, and there was a strange, unreadable expression on her face. "I couldn't sleep," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just doing some cleaning." The smell of wine hung heavy in the air. A cool draft from the window sent a shiver through my feverish body. Suddenly, Olivia stumbled into my arms, her voice a desperate plea. "Please stay with me, Ethan." She was so drunk she thought I was him. Before I had a chance to push her away, she was on her tiptoe, her lips on mine. Her kiss was demanding, the taste of wine invading my senses. Her slender fingers fumbled with the buttons of my shirt, desperate and impatient. And then the mocking laughter of her friends echoed in my head. "Yeah, just treat him like a boy toy for the night." Humiliation and pain washed over me, suffocating me. I couldn't take it anymore. I shove her away. If you love Ethan so much, you should never have married me. Why are we doing this? Just torturing each other until we can't even stand the sight of one another. I'm a man, I said, my voice shaking. Even I have my pride. She didn't answer. The drunken haze in her eyes slowly cleared, replaced by a look of deep resentment. I turned my back on her and went back to packing. She grabbed my wrist, her expression changing the moment her cool fingers touched my skin. You're burning up, she said, her tone shifting to annoyance. You're a grown man. Can't you even take care of yourself? She reached to feel my forehead, but I flinched away. She clicked her tongue in irritation. So you came to find me tonight. What did you overhear? I was past caring. The words just poured out. You think Ethan left the country because you married me? He left because he was terrified you'd ask him for a kidney. How dare you say that about him, she shrieked. Olivia snatched a heavy glass tumbler from a nightstand and hurled it at my head. I didn't move. It struck my forehead with a sickening thud, then shattered on the floor, the shards mixing with the blood that started to trickle down my face. It was always the same in her eyes. I was just an object she could pour all her anger into, something she could break without a second thought. Warm, sticky blood dripped into my eyes, blurring my vision. Through the haze of pain, I thought I saw her reach a hand toward me. Her expression panicked, but she quickly drew it back. She stood there, her face a mask of ice. You wanted me to come home. I came home. We're done here. The click of her heels faded into the night, and with it the last remnants of my foolish heart. The next day, after she'd sobered up, Olivia had her assistant drop off birthday presents for Leo and Lily. The kids left the gifts by the front door untouched. Leo looked at them with disdain. Our birthday was yesterday. What's the point of getting presents now? Lily added, her voice full of anger. We only want Mommy to come home so she could be with you, Daddy. If you don't want her anymore, then we don't want her either. Children who aren't loved learn to be careful and observe. They were barely toddlers, yet they spoke with a maturity that broke my heart. They were so perceptive it ached. Lily asked in her sweet, tiny voice, Daddy, where are we going to go? I stroked her hair. We're going to my grandmother's old house. The old Hayes estate in Beverly Hills was sold off years ago. All we had left was my grandmother's little house in the country. My mother had tried many times to convince her to move to the city, but Grandma always said she couldn't bear to leave her home. So Mom would take me there for weeks at a time to keep her from getting lonely. There are no amusement parks or tall buildings there, I explained, but there are singing birds, fields of flowers, and a little creek. The two of them hugged me tight, cutting me off. As long as we have you, Daddy, it will be the best place in the world. Lately, Olivia and I were both busy. She was preparing a welcome for Ethan's return from abroad, and I was preparing to leave with the children. She was a woman accustomed to being in control. If I wanted to get away, I had to plan it perfectly. The kids said they didn't want their mom anymore, but the day before we were set to leave, I found them staring sadly at a photograph of her. After hesitating, I finally called her. She answered, her voice clipped with its usual impatience. What do you want? She snapped. The kids want to see you, I said. Do you think you could come by one last time? Would she even do that for them? Then I heard his voice in the background. Olivia, if you're busy, I'll just book a flight back. Clearly, I'm not that important to you. It was Ethan. Olivia's voice became flustered. No, you're the most important thing to me. He's nobody. Then she hung up. When it's over, it's over. Even one last goodbye was too much to ask for. The painting I gave her, Mother, still hung above the bed. I could almost see the glint of that single tear on her cheek all those years ago. I flicked open a lighter and held the flame to the corner of the canvas. The fire caught quickly, greedily consuming everything in the room, then the entire house. My marriage to Olivia began with that painting, and it would end with it too. The flames lit up the night sky, silhouetting me and the children against the blaze. We held hands and walked away, never once looking back. Olivia, I was giving you the freedom you always wanted. The fire was ferocious, powerful enough to turn anything that felt permanent into ash. I took the children to my grandmother's old house in Willow Creek, a small tourist town where people were always passing by. After Grandma died, The house was left just as it was, now covered in a thick layer of dust. As I wiped it away, I could almost see her holding a huge watermelon and calling me over. She'd slice it in half and hand me a spoon, telling me to eat as much as I wanted, laughing as I dug in. The crow's feet around her eyes would crinkle as she laughed, calling me her little messy kitten. Now with my own children, I try to build that same quiet, peaceful life. We worked together, clearing the weeds that had overtaken the small yard. My plan was to fix the place up and open a small craft shop, selling handmade souvenirs to the tourists. Back in Los Angeles, the news reported a tragic fire at the Miller residence. Olivia Miller's husband and their twin children were presumed dead. While the fire was consuming our home, Olivia was in a hotel room with Ethan. He had just returned to the country, and he told her with a smirk that he needed to run to the pharmacy to pick up some essentials for the evening. Olivia knew exactly what he meant. After Ethan left, Olivia placed a hand over her heart. Strangely, she didn't feel the overwhelming excitement she had expected. Her pulse was steady and calm. So when he returned and eagerly pushed her onto the bed, she found herself instinctively recoiling, pushing away the very man she thought she had spent years dreaming of. "I'm sorry," she said, scrambling off the bed. "Something just came up at the office. I have to go." She fled, unable to understand her own reaction. The truth was that night with me, she hadn't been so drunk that she couldn't tell who I was. The alcohol had simply lowered her inhibitions, and her body had instinctively craved his closeness. The morning after, regret was real, but it was easier to blame me for it. After all, I'd always been the one to forgive her. When she got the call about the fire, Olivia was momentarily stunned. A sliver of regret crept into her mind. She couldn't help but think if only she had gone home that night, maybe none of this would have happened. But she quickly dismissed the thought, convincing herself it was just another one of my pathetic tricks, that I was still the same man who would do anything to get what he wanted. "What is he trying to pull this time?" she muttered, her heart filled with contempt as she said it. That feeling lasted until her assistant placed the items recovered from the scene into her hand. There was a blackened wedding ring and the half-burnt remains of 2 gift boxes. The ring, it was the only real link between us, and I had treasured it, never taking it off. And the presents she had sent for the children, it looked like they hadn't even been opened before the fire got to them. The fire started in the master bedroom, her assistant reported grimly. "The investigators think he set it himself. The door was locked from the inside. There was no way anyone could have gotten out." Olivia stumbled, her legs suddenly weak. "You're saying he chose not to escape, but he chose to die with our children in that house." She refused to believe it. It had to be a trick, and she was going to expose him. She ran into the charred ruins of the house, digging through the ash and debris with her bare hands, desperately searching for any sign that it was all a lie. If he had dared to fake this, she would make him pay dearly. But there was nothing but ash. The children's gifts had been left outside, which was the only reason anything of them survived. Of me, there was not a single trace. She used to think of me as some naive rich boy, that my love for her was just a passing fancy. Then she decided I was a desperate social climber, using my own body to buy my way back into high society. She was disgusted by me and by the children I had forced upon her. Now I had used death to sever our connection completely, and she felt no relief at all. That night, Olivia had a dream. In it, she had kept her promise and come home for the children's birthday. The children opened their presents with delight, jumping around her and calling her mommy. And she hadn't called me by the wrong name. She had looked at me, her eyes soft, and called me Lucas. She hadn't thrown a glass at my head. She had pulled me into a passionate kiss. When I called and asked her to come see the children, she had agreed without hesitation. The 4 of us were a family, sitting around a table, laughing together. A small smile played on Olivia's lips as she slept, lost in the beautiful moment. But a loud clap of thunder jolted her awake. She reached to the other side of the bed and felt only cold, empty sheets. The reality of it all came crashing back. The dream was absurd, she told herself, utterly ridiculous. How could she ever want a life with such a man? The fire must have shaken her more than she thought. Lucas Hayes was gone, vanished as completely as a drop of rain in the ocean. Olivia told herself over and over that she would feel nothing. Meanwhile, in Willow Creek, the children and I were living a simple, happy life, more content than we'd ever been in the city. There was a time when my birthday present would be a private party at Disneyland. Now, I was making a good living for my children with my own two hands. Soon, Leo and Lily were old enough for school. My little craft shop, thanks to my artistic background, became quite popular, drawing in more and more tourists. Female tourists would often ask to take a picture with me or get my number, but I always politely declined. 2 years went by like that. From time to time, well-meaning locals would try to set me up on dates. One woman was willing to accept the children and was interested because I was seen as a hard-working, decent-looking guy with good character. I always just smiled and politely said no. Then one day, the kids saw their mother on television. Olivia was more successful than ever, giving an interview as a powerhouse in the world of finance. Ethan, of course, was right by her side. A reporter from a tabloid asked, "Ms. Miller, it's been 2 years since your husband's tragic death. Are there any plans for you and Mr. Carter to tie the knot?" Olivia's expression soured, but before she could speak, Ethan jumped in. "We'll have good news to share very soon, so stay tuned." The kids turned, saw me watching, and quickly shut off the television. I just shrugged and smiled. "Hey, the shop's closed today. Let's go down to the creek and catch some crawdads." They cheered and ran for the door. When we came back hours later, covered in mud, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Olivia, the one woman I had done everything to escape, was standing right in front of my shop. She, who I'd never seen smoke in her life, was pacing back and forth, a cigarette pinched between her fingers. The ground around her was littered with butts. She had clearly been waiting for a very long time. The afternoon sun cast dappled shadows across her face, which looked tired and drawn. She dropped the cigarette and crushed it under her heel. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, and a smirk played on her red lips. "My dear departed husband," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is this what you've become since leaving me? You were certainly hard to find." Olivia was the type who never let anything go. She was here for revenge. I stared into her dark eyes, the words I had rehearsed in my head dying on my lips. I couldn't say a thing. Instead, I took my children by the hand and walked right past her, as if she wasn't even there. I was about to shut the door when she suddenly thrust her arm out to block it. The heavy wood slammed against her wrist with a sickening crack. She let out a painful gasp, but didn't move her arm. I had no choice but to open the door. "Go home. Olivia," I said, "the man you knew is dead. We have nothing to do with each other anymore." She was clearly in pain, bent over and cradling her wrist. As she looked down, a necklace slipped out from the collar of her blouse. Dangling from the chain, right before my eyes, was my wedding ring, the one I'd left in the fire. Why was she wearing it? Wincing in pain, Olivia tried to wave to the children through the crack in the door. "Say hi to Mommy," she said. Leo and Lily just turned their backs and walked away. I had no idea what she was playing at. Before, whenever they called her Mommy, she would scold them and tell them they didn't have the right. What kind of game was this? But she was persistent, and finally I agreed to talk. I sent Leo and Lily to their room, leaving me alone with Olivia. She sat on my worn-out sofa, dressed in a designer power suit, looking completely out of place but acting as if she owned it. "Don't forget, Lucas," she said coolly, "we are still legally married. I have every right to take my children." I laughed without humor. "What grade are they in? What's their favorite food? What are they allergic to? Do you have any idea?" She was silent. She realized she knew absolutely nothing about her own children. But she recovered quickly, her confident smirk returning. "Of course, if you come back to me, there will be no need for a custody battle. And you know better than anyone, Lucas, that I always get what I want." I almost had a laugh. "I doubt your precious Ethan will be so understanding about that arrangement." Instead of getting angry, a flicker of triumph appeared in her eyes. "Are you jealous? That means you still care about me." She stood and grabbed my arm, tried to pull herself into my embrace. There was a time when a move like that would have made my heart skip a beat. Not anymore. I held up my hand, stopping her by the shoulder and keeping her at arm's length. "Ms. Miller, please have some self-respect," I said. "I will sign whatever divorce papers you want. I don't want a single penny. All I want is to keep my children." She stared at me, breathing hard with disbelief. "You really think I tracked you down to this miserable town just to get a divorce?" "There's nothing else to discuss," I said, cutting her off before she could start. In our marriage, Olivia always had the power. Her coming here wasn't about love. It was about a possessive woman trying to regain control of what she considered hers. The next morning, I was woken by a loud banging and clattering from a vacant shop next door. When I walked the kids to school, I saw what it was. Olivia was directing a moving crew, setting up a satellite office right next to my shop. She paused, wiping sweat from her brow, and smiled at the children. "Good morning." Leo and Lily turned their heads and pointedly ignored her. Olivia's smile didn't falter as she turned it on me. "If you and the kids won't come back to LA, then I'll just have to stay here." In that moment, she sounded just like I used to. I had wanted to start my own business again after we got married, but Olivia left me with the twins the moment they were born. The feedings, the diapers, the sleepless nights, it was overwhelming with one baby, let alone two. I had no choice but to become a stay-at-home father to support her career. I not only used my connections, but also learned to run a household from scratch. My hands were always cut and calloused. I treated her dream as my own, and all she ever gave me was contempt. A gambler's journey ends in bankruptcy. Mine ended in despair. When love isn't there, every effort is pointless, just like her efforts now. Olivia started showing up at the kids' preschool every day at pickup time. Even though the kids and I ignored her, she kept it a day after day. She started trying to cook, bringing over dishes that we never accepted. She even showed up uninvited to the parent-teacher day at the preschool. She was content to sit by herself in the corner, just watching me and the kids with a goofy smile on her face. Looking at her, you'd never guess she was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. Then, for some bizarre reason, she adopted a bunch of stray dogs. I remembered how I'd once adopted a stray to keep me company in that big, empty house, even though she was rarely there. Olivia, with her allergies, couldn't stand it. She had the dog taken away, the dog I'd grown to love, and refused to tell me where it went, no matter how much I pleaded. Now here she was, holding a puppy, asking me through the fence if it was cute. I could see the red hives already breaking out on her arms. The old me would have obsessed over her motives, trying to figure out what she was really after. But now I just didn't care. Once she got bored of playing this game, she'd go back to her corner office in LA. But to my surprise, she stayed. Olivia, who was used to a life of absolute luxury, actually remained in our small, dusty town for months. Soon it was the fall festival again, the twins' birthday. I'd been planning their party for weeks. We sat in a backyard under a huge, bright moon and lit the candles on their cake. Leo and Lily squeezed their eyes shut, earnestly making their wishes. "I wish Daddy is happy forever," Leo whispered. "I wish Daddy makes lots of money, so he doesn't have to work so hard," Lily added. My heart swelled with love and pride. The peaceful moment was shattered by the sound of singing. Olivia appeared, pushing a large cart and singing Happy Birthday with a tender expression on her face. The cart was piled high with beautifully wrapped presents. When she finished the song, she smiled and held her arms open wide. "These are for you," she announced, "all the birthday presents Mommy missed from your first birthday to your fifth. Do you like them?" The twins just glanced at each other before quietly turning their attention back to the cake. Rejected, Olivia retreated to the yard next door. She sat alone in the darkness, her solitary figure occasionally glancing over at us. The moon was full, but our family was broken. We were all looking at the same moon, but feeling very different things. Her voice cut through the quiet. She was leaning over the fence that separated our yards. "Lucas," she asked, "why did you give me your kidney?" All of my foolish decisions have been driven by a single, simple force: love. My love for her had probably been at its strongest right after my family lost everything. Going from an heir of a fortune to a homeless outcast overnight nearly broke me. At my lowest, I had creditors hunting me down. I was living like a rat in the gutter, drinking from the LA River when I was thirsty, and digging through dumpsters for scraps of food. Even so, they eventually caught me. They were vicious, and when they realized I had no money, they decided they would sell my organs to settle the debt. I had given up. I was ready to die. After my family's fall, I had nothing left to lose. But then, like an angel, Olivia appeared and saved me. She tossed a wad of cash at them with a look of disdain and warned them to never bother me again. To her, the money was probably nothing, just a pittance tossed to a beggar she pitied. But to me, it was salvation. She was a single, beautiful flower blooming in the ruins of my life. It took me years to realize she was never my flower to keep. I was just lucky enough to be there while she was in bloom. My Aunt Clara offered me a way out, a new life with her in Europe, where she'd lived for years. She said with my artistic talent, I could build a new life for myself there. I had the visa, the ticket, everything was ready. I never imagined I'd be on the same flight as Ethan Carter. At the airport, I overheard him talking to a friend. Olivia's really sick, he was saying. She needs a kidney, and they're probably going to ask me if I'm a match. I can't say no, so I'm getting out of here now. I'll just make up some excuse to break up with her later, make it her fault. Besides, he said, I met this rich heiress in Paris. She wants me to be her business partner. My real life is just getting started. All I could hear was that Olivia was dying. I walked away from the gate and never got on the plane. As luck would have it, I was a perfect match. The complications from surgery were so severe, I almost died on the table. When Olivia woke up, the first thing she asked was if Ethan had been her donor. When the nurse told her it was me, she just said, oh. I hadn't done it for any reward. My plan was still to leave for Europe as soon as I recovered. But then her grandfather fell gravely ill, and his dying wish was for us to marry. To the outside world, I was the luckiest man alive, marrying the beautiful Olivia Miller and securing my future. They also whispered that I was a ruthless schemer, willing to sacrifice my own health just to marry into the Miller family. It was a twisted version of the truth, but it was the version Olivia chose to believe. I tried to explain so many times, but she never wanted to hear it. Now she was finally ready to listen, but I no longer had anything to say. The story of Lucas and Olivia had already ended, consumed by the flames of that fire. When I didn't respond, she called my name again softly. Lucas. Her eyes shimmered, either with starlight or unshed tears. You never said anything. You were always so quiet. I never realized you were in pain too. Lucas, I owe you my life. Please let me spend the rest of it making it up to you. Her tears might have moved me once, but now my answer was simple, no. Business at the shop was booming. With the tourist season in full swing, there was often a line out the door. One afternoon, a commotion erupted at the entrance. A man burst in, followed by a group of thugs, and they immediately started wrecking the place. The man leading them was Ethan Carter. He grabbed me by the collar, his face contorted with rage. You piece of trash, he snarled. Couldn't you find anyone else? You had to go after a married woman. You have some nerve messing with my woman. He then turned to the stunned tourists in my shop. And you people are giving this scum your money? A man with no morals like him deserves to be run out of town. Some of the tourists started whispering among themselves, believing him. He seemed like such a nice guy. I can't believe he's a homewrecker. I saw some posts on Facebook about him and that rich woman who moved in next door. I bet she's a sugar mama. How shameless. Yeah, with this whole humble artist act. What a phony. Let's get out of here, everyone. Just then, Leo and Lily, fresh from school, pushed through the crowd and stood protectively in front of me. My daddy's not like that, Leo shouted. He doesn't even like our mommy anymore. She's the one who won't leave him alone. She's the shameless one. Yeah, Lily added, my daddy is a good man. This was a fight between adults. I didn't want them caught in the middle. Hey, you too. Go to your room, okay? It's my job to handle this. After a bit of coaxing, they finally went inside. Ethan opened his mouth to spew more venom, but before he could, I balled up my fist and punched him square in the jaw. He stumbled backward, caught completely off guard. He raised his own fist to retaliate, but just then, Olivia pushed her way through the crowd and stepped right in front of me. His punch meant for me landed on her instead. Blood trickled from the corner of her lip. Ethan panicked. Olivia, I'm so sorry. You just appeared out of nowhere. I couldn't stop it. Olivia looked at him, her eyes cold and empty. I told you, Ethan, we're over. After Ethan had told the press they'd have good news soon, the normally composed Olivia had flown into the biggest rage of her life. She had told him then that she would only ever acknowledge one man as her husband, Lucas Hayes. Ever since Lucas left, I can't lie to myself anymore, she said, her voice shaking. My heart knows who it loves, and it's him. You know I don't love you, Ethan. You took the money I gave you, but you still won't leave me alone. This just makes me hate you more. Just go. But Ethan wouldn't give up. He grabbed her wrist. Why, Olivia? You told me you wanted to marry me, that I was the only one you loved. What changed? I get it, he's threatening you, isn't he? I told you he was nothing but a broke loser trying to get his hands on your money. You need to wake up, Olivia. His true ugly colors were finally showing. Olivia yanked her arm free, her face a mask of disgust. No one is threatening me. This is how I really feel. A crowd of tourists had gathered, and several were now recording the scene on their phones. To protect my shop's reputation, I started to explain that it was all a misunderstanding. But then Olivia did something I never expected. She pulled our marriage certificate from her purse and held it up for everyone to see. Lucas Hayes is my husband, she declared. He is not a homewrecker. This is all my fault. I was the one who broke his heart and forced him to hide away out here. Please don't blame him. After her speech, the crowd turned on Ethan. So, they're actually married? What's this guy doing showing up and causing a scene? Yeah, the owner is just trying to raise his kids and run a business. This jerk is trying to ruin him. What a lowlife. Get out of here, someone yelled. You're holding up a line. Yeah, beat it. I wasn't about to let him just walk away. He had to pay for the damage he'd caused. I called the police. Seeing the tide had turned against him, that even Olivia wanted him gone, Ethan's tone became desperate. Olivia, I might as well tell you, he pleaded, my investments overseas went bad. I'm drowning in debt. The money you gave me wasn't nearly enough. Are you really going to let my creditors kill me? Olivia's brow furrowed as she studied him. So that's the real reason you came back to the States? Ethan started to protest, but the police had arrived and were already hauling him away. As the victim, I had to go down to the station to give a statement. When I came out, Olivia was waiting. She started to reach for my hand, then seemed to think better of it and let it drop. Can we start over? She asked, her voice small. The Ice Queen was gone, replaced by a woman with a pleading smile and tired, tear-filled eyes. I had asked myself the same question a million times over the years. Did Olivia ever really love me? Looking at her now, I thought maybe in this one moment she did. But it was too late. The answer didn't matter anymore. I smiled, a genuine smile of release. Olivia, I said, I hope you find happiness. Those few words shattered her. It was as if she were watching me dissolve into 1,000 pieces right before her eyes, pieces she could never put back together. She decided not to push. There was still a chance, she told herself, there had to be. Since you don't want to see me right now, I'll come back another time. Don't, I said, not another time. Not ever. I said it with a finality that left no room for argument. The heart she had broken so thoroughly couldn't be patched back together, not even with her own. The moment she finally admitted she loved me, she realized just how hollow she had become herself. Perhaps all those years, I had been pouring pieces of myself into her, trying to make her whole. Now that I was gone, she could feel the cold wind whistling through the empty spaces, and it was an agony unlike any she had ever known. So this was what it felt like. This was the pain I had endured for years, trying to warm a heart that would never warm to me. She was finally feeling it herself. As she walked away, she kept looking back, half expecting me to call out to her, to open my arms, to say let's try again. But I didn't. She could only watch as I took my children's hands in mine and walked back into my little shop, my new life, without a single backward glance. The divorce was finalized without any trouble. Olivia didn't bother me again. Life in Willow Creek went on, peaceful and quiet. A few years later, I met a wonderful woman. The kids adored her, and she loved them right back. And she loved me with a sincerity I had never known. So I asked her to marry me. Our life together was happy, full, and beautifully ordinary. Epilogue. It was strange. The moment she heard I had died in the fire, Olivia didn't feel the relief she'd expected. Instead, she felt a gaping hole burn open in her chest, leaving her feeling utterly empty. I had loved her so much. How dare I leave without her permission, and in such a final, irreversible way? She forced herself to forget, to try and build a life with Ethan. But the harder she tried, the more she grew to despise him. They fought constantly. Olivia rebuilt the house on the same plot of land, decorating it exactly as it had been before. She would stand in the silent rooms, searching for any trace of me that might remain. She was a hollow shell standing in a hollow house. She realized she was a fool, trying to recapture a past that was gone forever. The ache of loss was constant, so she had my charred wedding ring put on a chain. She wore it every day, pretending a part of me was still with her. When she learned I was alive, she wept with joy. She had planned to be angry, to give me a piece of her mind for what I'd put her through. But when she finally saw me, all her anger evaporated, replaced by a desperate, cautious hope. She was terrified that she had truly lost me for good. She tried everything she could think of to win me back, to atone for the past. But it was no use. I really, truly did not want her anymore. It was only in losing me that Olivia understood how much she had loved me. And it was only in trying to come back that she understood it was too late. As for Ethan, his debts finally caught up with him. He disappeared one day while on a run from loan sharks and was never heard from again. When Olivia heard the news, she felt nothing. If anything, she felt a sliver of satisfaction. She threw herself into her work, working tirelessly because in any quiet moment, her mind would fill with thoughts of me. Lucas Hayes was getting married. His bride wasn't a famous beauty or a powerful executive. She was just a normal, kind woman from a small town. And the more ordinary she was, the more it tormented Olivia. She had finally and completely lost the one person who had ever truly loved her.